Welcome to Talks with Sheba, the place where real people give real answers on issues plaguing our community today. Hi, I'm your host, Dr. Sheba Holly. Thanks for joining us on this marvelous Monday. We aim to invite, excite, educate, and empower. So let's talk. Let's talk about human trafficking. It's happening in your backyard. Are you paying attention? Do you think what's going on is really going on? It's happening. Slavery is happening even today. Let's take a look at some statistics.
Human trafficking enslaves 27 million people around the world,
making that more slaves today than any other time in history.
13.5 million are children.
Human trafficking is the second largest criminal industry and will soon surpass the drug trade.
The victims of trafficking are from any social class, any neighborhood. It can occur anytime, anywhere.
More than 20,250,000 people are forced into the sex trade.
1,200,000 are children.
In the United States, an estimated 200,000 American children are sexually exploited.
Every 24 seconds, a child is trafficked.
1 out of 3 runaway teenagers are approached by a pimp within 48 hours after leaving home.
In 1996, the average age of a victim was between 16 and 17.
Today, the average age is 13. What will that age be in 2020?
The youngest victim was only 6 months old.
It is estimated that there are 1,700 victims of trafficking in Kansas City.
they are all around us, hidden yet visible.
What will you do?
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 What would you do? 6 months old. Today we have Tina Frundt, the executive director of Courtney's House. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here.
You know, it's a privilege to have you here. I search high and low for a person that can really get this message out here, and I found you.
Thank you.
I found you. You are definitely the person that needs to let everyone know that it's our business. Pay attention. We all need to wake up. So, Tina, could you just tell us a little bit about, well, first of all, you are United States Advisory Council member.
Yes.
That was appointed by Obama.
Yes.
For human trafficking.
Yes.
That speaks volumes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That speaks volumes. So, how did you get there?
Well, it's definitely been a journey. So you all should know that there is a Pacific law that recently passed. And within that law recently passing, the JVTA law that represents U.S. citizens who were sex trafficked. A lot of survivors, myself and many others, advocated to have a special advisory board of survivors of all forms of human trafficking that can actually sit on an advisory board and then help the United States government with the right policies to put in place for survivors.
But just, they picked you.
They did.
So that says a whole lot. And you have Courtney's House.
Yes.
How did you get there? Where did Courtney's House come from?
Well, I'm the founder of Courtney's House, but let's talk about kind of what that really means. Mm-hmm. I've been working on the issue of ending sex trafficking since about 2004. So in 2008, I started Courtney's House. However, Courtney's House is the only survivor-run organization in this area for direct services. So I'm a survivor of child sex trafficking. And not only is this the first, it's the only African-American run organization in the D.C. area as well.
Wow. So Courtney, is Courtney a person?
So Courtney is a name, and that is the name of my youngest daughter. However, I didn't name Courtney's house, and if you talk to her, she will tell you that it's her organization.
You're kidding.
However, I thought of a name, right?
Okay.
And so the name means this. When kids are at our drop-in center and their friends are texting them, they can simply say, I'm at Courtney's house, and it sounds like a friend's name. Because this is about stigma. So it's not about me. This is about you, so you will never feel uncomfortable to refer. So 44% of our referrals are from other youth survivors of sex trafficking.
That is brilliant.
Thank you.
Never in a million years, but that makes a lot of sense.
Well, it's really about a stigma of shame where it shouldn't be. And to be quite honest, what would help know that but another survivor and understand that? And actually, my message isn't really to people who are not survivors. My message is to people who are survivors of trafficking so they can reach out themselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you said you are a survivor.
Yes.
And I watched a lot of your videos, and let me tell you, I was in tears, literally, and it's hard. It's like I'm reliving the video and reliving your pain. How did it start?
Well, before I even get into how it starts, I want you all to know that all the videos that you may see when you look me up, read about Courtney's house, that's 5% of my life. You all know 5% of my life. And for you, it's so deep, that 5%. And for me, I can only talk about what I feel healthy about on that 5%. But it's 5% of my life. And so my trafficking situation started in Chicago, Illinois at age 9 inside the foster care system. In the beginning, you played some averages, an average age, and someone said that in the 1990s, the average age was 16 to 17 for forced prostitution, but that's not actually a reality. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, a lot of those statistics are wrong. Because when I was in a life at 9, there were many kids around me. I wasn't the only person. It wasn't just me. Right. And everyone I met was really young. So just know that this has always been going this way. This is not something new. Crime doesn't happen one day when you wake up and it's new and it's just created overnight. Mm-hmm. So my situation started with many, well, at first sounds like child sexual abuse. But when you're 9 years old, you don't understand the money exchange. You understand things that you're told to do with other people. So if I was in a foster care, then it's foster families that was doing. So not just me, the boys and girls around me too, which is why I work with boys too who were trafficked.
So foster care, and it seems like it's that common in foster care for this to happen.
You know, sadly, it's common because you have cash cows around you, basically. And that's how I felt. So cash cow means they get money off of you each month. Mm-hmm. There were 6 and 7 different kids with us. It wasn't like it was 1 or 2. We all lived. I grew up in Chicago, Illinois. And it was all in the project areas where we grew up in foster care. Not in the suburbs, not in a picket fence. We didn't grow up like that. And growing up in Chicago, I grew up poor. When I first came to the D.C. area, I called people here the richest, poorest people I ever met in my life. I'm like, they poor, but they got Jordans on. I don't know what this is like.
I don't get it. They have cell phones.
Right, people got cell phones. What's that about? But really, in my environment, that's what I grew up around. So 97% of all our survivors, including myself, are sexually abused before their trafficking situation. I told you I was 9. So what I actually want you to pay attention to is the youth that I work with and myself never had consensual sex. Mm-hmm. And that's very important, especially on a trafficking situation, because you cannot tell someone that their body is their temple and you should respect it if it was always taken away from you. If nobody ever asked permission, if you never knew that you had a choice over your own body, let's start right there. Because when we talk about all the trauma that you endure in trafficking, if that mindset in the very beginning, do you know how long that takes? If it was just that. Now people use your body over and over and over and over again. So it's not about the sex no more, or even loving yourself, because you're not even physically present. So the realities of what I'm talking about is that you cannot tell someone, why don't you respect your body more, when it was always taken away?
I'm speechless.
It's just another perspective. When we're judging people and not understanding, when we're making fun of people and we're calling them a hoe, when we're judging their clothes, we're judging them right now. We're not even looking about their past, what they brought up. We're talking about family control, foster care. But a lot of our kids were controlled by their own family members, their birth grandmother, their birth mother. So when this has always been sexual abuse, but to another level where other people are coming in your home and selling you, how do you stop that mindset? So now you turn 13. Does that all just go away and that's it? Or do you meet somebody who can also profit off of that and put you in a different exploitive situation? Do you make an easier target?
So this becomes the dysfunctional normal.
Correct. It becomes the dysfunctional normal.
So there's a little confusion regarding the terminologies.
Yes.
With sex trafficking, sex slavery. Could you?
Yes. So let's talk about that, because I think the hardest thing to get people to understand is the ridiculous terminology. And I say ridiculous because as a survivor of sex trafficking, I had to learn what sex trafficking was. I had no idea what sex trafficking was. And do you know why? Because the government created the word. So when the government creates a word, they don't ask us. They don't ask survivors. Right. So I was in a room when they were deciding what they were basically going to call it. So me and many other survivors said forced prostitution. Let's explain what prostitution is in the trafficking interlinks, because survivors of trafficking aren't identifying because they don't know the word trafficking. So that's a disconnect. When the government creates a word, right, in a white ivory tower, but doesn't actually come on down to the ground. Right. So when we're sitting in these meetings, and the government officials said, hey, no, I think it's confusing. But the reality is it was confusing for them. So I'm telling you all of this now because the big debate is, the problem is there's this disconnect with trafficking with the rest of the world, where they're not identifying. They're thinking it's people from other countries and being snatched off because of the movies, right?
Yes.
So we're actually going to be changing that back to what we originally tried to do with forced prostitution.
Got it.
So here's a great way to explain. If you all grew up in the D.C. area here, then I will take you back to the 90s and 80s. And if you're too young to remember, you can Google it. And that means right down on 14th Street, all the way up to Clifton Terrace before it was regentrified. And when it was up, and people would bring their family members to watch pimps. They did. And many of you would remember what I'm talking about. And not only did they bring their family members to watch pimps, but look at the girls, the long lines. So what we were watching and laughing at and telling our families about was sex trafficking. And those young girls we were laughing about were most likely 12 and 11 and 13 and being sold. So that's what trafficking has always looked like. The federal definition does say pimp, because in Uganda they say pimp. In Malaysia they say pimp.
Okay.
So trafficking is a governmental term.
Got it.
It's deep, isn't it?
Very.
It is. It's a lot of layers to it.
Very. And it's funny you bring up, I'm not from this area. However, I called the DMV my home. 14th Street was always a joke.
Yes.
Where I come from, it was 42nd Street.
Yes.
In New York.
Yes.
So when they talked about 14th Street here, I never heard about the lines.
Yeah.
I never heard about just it being like I guess peep show wouldn't be the right word for it, but just you're like watching all of this happen like it's entertainment.
And making fun of too, actually. A lot of people would make fun of the girls and women there. Yes. And so that's our society with the word pimp. We make fun of it. We say things are pimp slap. We say ha ha, he. And we think it's a choice because of what the media portrays. But change that, right? Have a pimp and let's change who the women are. And let's change them into women from another country who didn't speak English. Then we will feel bad.
Right.
Here's the thing. The average age of women who are forced here in the country that receive help, did you know is 23? That's the average age. But if you are 18 and over here, even though you testify against your trafficker, you will get charged.
With
U.S. citizen, yes, you will. That's a charge. Even though you testify against them, you'll testify. You'll get charged for prostitution.
If you're 18.
Yes, U.S. citizen. Which is why I focus on a lot of the policies, and that's why. Because it wasn't fair. Now, please don't think on the foreign national side everything is fair for them when we get nothing. That's not what I'm telling you. But what I am telling you is 2003, there was a federal law put in place in 2003. This law came with money, millions of dollars. So if you were foreign national and you were brought here in the U.S. and you were trafficked, you can bring you and your family, apply for a special visa called a Trafficking in Persons visa, which is amazing. In 2005, I helped pass a law. President Bush signed it. We all got a pen. And that law was that he recognized U.S. citizens being trafficked in 2005. Now, it's 2016. In 2015, in September, money was finally appropriated for that law that was passed in 2005 for U.S. citizens. And that's how we're being treated, and that's what the law represents that. So that's why it's so important that we have the advisory board, and we also are mixed with U.S. citizens, foreign nationals, so we can have the right policies in place.
So this is beyond what we see on the street. There are laws, and as U.S. citizens, we're supposed to be the land of the plenty,
right?
We're not being treated fairly, and we're still fighting for rights for those that have been harmed.
Correct. And still stigmatized. When you see the media, right, all the time, and it says trafficking ring, and it will say Asian women, Colombian women were taking trafficking. But then in the same paper, right under it in small letters, you will see 16-year-old prostitute and high school prostitution ring. So the problem with that statement is that 16-year-olds can't sell themselves. And legally, under federal definition, no child can sell themselves. So that's a victim of a crime because that means an adult male is having sex with a child. But look how we just portrayed that in the media.
Yeah. Like they were...
Right.
Interesting. It's hard to think about, and a lot of people turn a blind eye to it.
Yeah, I mean, I say I have the hardest job that anyone can have. Not only did I had to overcome what I went through, learn that I was a victim of something, but every single day of my life I have to fight, repeat my story, and convince you it happened to me.
So you're reliving it. And that's just, it's like I wanted you on the show to let everyone know this is what's going on. And you said your message are to other survivors. Yes. But in my heart, I feel like, oh my gosh, it's like I'm asking you to relive.
Well, to me, I let me explain that everyone has to get to a good place, and I'm in a very good place with my life. Not every survivor is, so I'm really glad you have even mentioned that. I told you to talk about 5%. I have to talk about what feels comfortable to me, that I can go home and sleep at night, because I do work with over 60-something kids, and every day of my life I have to hear their story. The story actually isn't the thing that bothers me, to be honest. You all would be surprised. I'm sure many of your viewers actually won't. Because every time I speak, you have no idea how many people come to me, even at churches, who say they either have a granddaughter, a niece, a nephew, themselves 20, 30 years ago was on 14th Street, they told me. True, this was just recently at Shiloh Baptist Church.
Wow.
When people reached out and say thank you, you would be surprised how many people have gone through this everywhere I speak around the country, but they're too afraid to say anything to other people.
Yeah, too afraid. Again, because we're not talking about it.
Right.
We need to talk about it. Tina's here to school you because you don't know what you don't know, and now you know.
That's right.
Now you know. Pay attention because it's happening. There's just so many ways.
Yes.
So when you think about the sex trafficking, you see the children, then what about those middle class or upper middle class folks that have the children as slaves?
So here's the thing that I think media separates. So the things with children with slaves is the same thing for sex trafficking. It's all the same. So I have kids in Fredericksburg, have people in Frederick,
Virginia.
Maryland. Yes. I have survivors. Charles County, I trained. I just got a couple of referrals. Howard County. Germantown, Gaithersburg. So here's the thing that it's a little scary but true. There could be a pimp in your house right now because you have the internet. And so a lot of our kids actually meet a lot of these people, man and female, men and females, online. Either they had a fake profile, they think they're talking to a 14-year-old, they're going to a party. I don't know if parents, all of you, a lot of kids get these parties on Instagram and Snapchat to go to. A lot of the gangs actually put out. It's a lot of gang controlled trafficking, especially in Virginia.
Got it.
So with that being said, they advertise for parties. They're called skip parties. And it's a skip party during the daytime. What happens is they drug you. And unfortunately, they season you, so they rape you in, and they videotape rape. So you're asking me, how do people get tricked in? What if you weren't supposed to be at a party and you were 14? You skipped class. Because you skipped class, you actually didn't drink. You drank water. But when you woke up, you were naked. Someone videotaped you. Someone raped you. Now they say if you don't do this, this is what's going to happen. Now that actually is the number one form, especially on the gang control side, that happens more often than you think. So that happens all the time.
Okay.
So a child is afraid. They're like, I'm going to get in trouble, even though they were victimized in that. They're afraid. So now I can say, if you don't do something, I'll show this. I'll put it on the internet. I'll show your family, or I'll harm your family. So we're thinking about kids here, right? So you tell a child that to a child they think they have to protect you. You as an adult say you don't. But as a child, that's that fear in the video.
Right. Skip party.
Yes.
Snapchat. So just like she said, take heed. The pimp could be in your home through your internet.
That's right.
Through your internet.
That's right. So that's why, kids, doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with race or your income. If that was the case, then men who buy sex would call a pimp and say, hi, I would like the really poor child. That doesn't happen.
Exactly. Exactly.
It doesn't happen.
Oh, my gosh. Listen, everyone. Of course, you know, after the show's over, I'll load this show up on the internet and you will be able to hear her again and again if you didn't get it the first time. Still to come, the traps of the game after these messages.
Are you or someone you know suffering from stress, anxiety, or depression? Have you experienced feelings of frustration due to lack of family and/or career support? Let's talk. Relationship issues got you down? Get the help you need. Contact Dr. Sheba Holly, mental health advisor and life coach at clarity.fm/Dr. Sheba Holly. That's DrShebaHolly. If confidentiality, comfort, and convenience is important to you, guidance is provided on your terms. You deserve peace of mind. Contact Dr. Sheba Holly, mental health advisor and life coach at clarity.fm/Dr. Sheba Holly. That's DrShebaHolly. Get answers now. Make your appointment today. Let's talk. Clarity.fm/Dr. Sheba Holly. That's DrShebaHolly.
If you've just tuned in, we're on with Tina Frundt. Human trafficking. It's happening. Talks with Sheba. We're bringing it to you, bringing that information that you need. Now, the traps of the game.
Yeah.
How does that work? Because we talked about the family dysfunction and how you can get pimped through your family. However, it can look differently.
Yes.
You come out of that one situation and you're like, oh, okay, well, this is what's happening at home. But could you describe what happened to you?
So my first situation would be a family control situation. Now, I want to ask you all to think about something when I tell you this. When you're 9 years old, did I actually think that these people were my pimp?
Of course not.
Of course not. So to me, a pimp had a big hat and a cane too. Wouldn't that be easy if every pimp walked down the street with a big hat and a cane?
And a fur.
We would just know where every pimp is. So I didn't know what a pimp was either. So I really think that's important to understand. Later when I was adopted, my family was fine, treated me great. I met this guy. And I was very street savvy. So it was not like that I jumped in someone's car and van and just ran off into the sunset and believed everything they had. That's not how any relationship really works. He actually was just in my neighborhood, and that's what trafficking sounds like. He was just in my neighborhood. It was nothing particular. He said hello. He said hi. I saw him on my way to school. He told me I should go to school. He told me he had a niece my age. He was 15 years older than me. I told you I was 13 and a half. And he told me how college was important. So think about that, and then think about a teenager. Just a couple years ago when we were teenagers, think about that. And then think about what he was telling me. And I'm asking you all that because at that time, at that age, in my head, we were all told by our parents what to be aware of. How many of you were told to be aware of the person who was not trying to have sex with you?
Never.
So that's the thing. That was his end. But that's actually how pedophiles work. Not every trafficker is like, it's not about sex. It's about money.
Right.
So they're not just having sex, and that's not what happens. But now my mom had a problem when I was adopted, and her addiction was shopping. She shopped at Neiman's Marcus, Saks Fifth Avenue, and had a personal buyer. I'm telling you this because just because he bought me things, that my parents can buy me things, that's not the point. The point is, he bought me things.
Right.
He paid attention to me. You see what I'm saying? Right. So in my head, there was no worry. I was home. I wasn't kidnapped. Went to school. I didn't run away from home. So why would I tell my parents to me at that time if there was no danger to me?
Right.
So of course my parents didn't know about him because there was no reason for me. I'm home on time. He said, go to school. One day I'm running late for school. When I got adopted, my parents put me in speech therapy for 4 years. And because I grew up in Chicago, Illinois, in a inner city. So I went to Montessori when I was adopted.
Okay.
So one day I'm running late to school in the suburbs, and he gave me a ride. Now, did I get there?
Of course you did.
And there you go.
Building trust.
So to me, everything's great. Now, in my head, we got to remember teenage years. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month is a lifetime. You're married, okay? It's just, that is it.
Yes.
You're together forever. So in my head, a month and a half, like, he loved me. We're going to get married tomorrow. So he told me his family had a business, in Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
So I'm from Chicago.
And that's not far.
It's not far. I've never been to Cleveland, Ohio before.
That's almost like the Bahamas.
Right. To me, I've never been. I'm like, oh, he has a business. But here's the thing. Did I ask him what the family business is? Of course not. I don't care. I'm getting items. I'm 13. I don't really care what the family business is. So on my 14th birthday, which is only a couple months, so we knew each other 2 months, I got in an argument with my parents. And to be very honest, it's an argument that most kids have. My argument was I couldn't stay out past 9 p.m.
Okay.
Now, to you all, who cares?
Right.
But remember when you were 13 and your life was going to end?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're going to miss out on the world. So for me, I said, hey, I'm going to give him a call. He said he'll pick me up in 15 minutes and not to take anything. I think that's very important because I didn't want to run away. I wasn't thinking I was running away. I was thinking in my head that I would leave and come back. And when I come back, my parents will see that I was perfectly fine. And they would say, oh, my goodness, 11 p.m. curfew for you.
Yes.
Now, that's funny now, but here's the thing. I speak to Hyattsville Elementary, middle school. I speak to D.C. high schools. And every kid, when I tell that story, go, that makes perfectly good sense to me. I just want you to know that every child thinks that makes sense. That will make their whole thing change. So I left and where he's driving, and I noticed the signs are starting to change. And then he told me that he had to go to Ohio because he stopped everything to come and get me. But he was actually on his way to Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, and that's important. It's like you're a big deal. That's why I stopped everything for you.
There you go. Now, what you just said is important. Now, think 14. When someone was sexually abused, you blame yourself for everything.
Yeah.
It's always your fault. So when someone plays that, because actually what he's doing is the mental part of the sex trafficking piece. Because now I'm blaming you. But then I'm punishing you. But then I'm saying it's your fault. But then I'm saying I care about you. That's a typical what an abuser would do. So now we're driving and we stop and I feel bad because I'm going to apologize to him. And I feel bad. But the car doors appeared to be unlocked.
The car doors appeared to be unlocked?
So I went to reach to open the doors, but they weren't. unlocked. So what do you think was wrong with the locks?
They were childproofed?
So I would say, because this week is my birthday and I woke up like this. But the bigger problem is that that didn't become standard until 1993 in every car. So it was tricked out locks.
Oh my
So we were able to prove this case as trafficking back then. We could have proved the intent. If his car was tricked out and the windows were super dark in the truck that he had, did he actually set his car up to do this? See, this is the thing about trafficking. When we look at a pimp and we say, look at their car, look at what they have, are they actually setting up their items for trafficking?
Right.
So he set up his car for it, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I left home. Now, when I left home, my parents did what good parents do. They reported me missing.
Yes.
So when you report a child missing, you all may not know this, but in every system around the country, it goes into the police system as a runaway. That's actually super important that I just told you that. Because those statistics, when they say most people run away,
yes,
actually 99% of our survivors' story just sound like I'm told you. This is a typical kidnapping. So the problem with that statistic is that if you put us all in the system as a runaway, did you know in this area and in Illinois at that time that you can get a charge called abscondence? Abscondence is a runaway charge. So I got charged with running away. So a police interviews you for running away.
Yeah.
So now that's my fault. See the words I just used?
Yes.
That's my fault. Would I tell about the traffic? No, I'm afraid because I ran away from home, I thought. But did I really run? Did I? So I'm going to ask you that, Sheba. Did I run away from home,
You
technically?
did not.
Here's the thing. I was 14. Did he ask permission from my parents?
Of course not.
Even if I was still in foster care, the social worker didn't give permission. So here's the thing. We keep blaming a 13, 14-year-old for a grown person mistake. It's a grown man that the child is getting in a car. That's illegal. You can't even do that. You can't give permission. So forget about state lines for a moment, but we can prove it.
Okay.
The point of his age was number one. The next thing, if we were able to prove it, was this is actually how kidnapping looks. It doesn't look like you saw in Taken, where someone is just taken. This is actually kidnapping. But the right questions aren't answered to determine this. So he didn't do time in jail. He wasn't charged with kidnapping. I, at 15, ran for help. And then I was charged for prostitution.
You're kidding.
No, this is why I work on the policy and the reason I started Courtney's House.
Oh my gosh.
So the best thing about being on the White House Advisory Board, I also had other charges that I had expunged. To get my charges expunged, I had to advocate for that and advocate for the policy that we had to go back years, that when you are sex trafficking force, you should have charges off of your record. Sadly, that's not in every state yet. And it isn't here yet. And it wasn't in Virginia. I had charges in Virginia. And we got to get creative about getting them off. Okay. So that's so important.
Very important. We're going to take a look at a video to show us how common human trafficking is.
It is widely believed that slavery no longer exists in the world, or that it has been largely eradicated. But in fact, it has been reported that there are now more slaves than there have ever been before in history. Modern slavery is largely known as human trafficking and involves the trade of people for labor, sex, and even their organs. So just how bad is human trafficking? Most cases are broken down into two main categories: sex trafficking and labor trafficking. Victims of labor trafficking around the world are often forced to work in sweatshops and mines. Younger victims are exploited and forced to beg on the street and may even be enlisted as child soldiers. Meanwhile, victims of sex trafficking are forced into prostitution and pornography. These victims don't tend to stay in one place for long and are often moved from city to city. In Bulgaria, a hotbed of human trafficking, the average annual salary is $2,600. However, a forced prostitute can earn more than 10 times that amount. Traffickers generally use force, fraud, and coercion to keep people enslaved. Many victims are kidnapped from their homes. Once captured, tactics such as rape, physical abuse, and food and sleep deprivation are used to control victims. Fraud refers to the trafficker's tactic of luring a victim with promises of legitimate work or a better life. However, once the victim arrives, there is no work to be found. Instead, they are forced into a sweatshop or a brothel. Finally, traffickers threaten violence against captives' families to keep them in check. It is estimated that approximately 21 to 36 million people are enslaved around the world. Worse yet, more than a quarter of victims are under 18. And while many believe that human trafficking only occurs in third world countries, slaves have been found all over the United States. Some are migrant workers, others as domestic employees, and a number are prostitutes. So what is being done to put a stop to human trafficking? In the U.S., the Trafficking Victims Protection Act was the first federal law to address trafficking in the United States. It is intended to both prevent and protect survivors of human trafficking and prosecute traffickers. While many suggest that slavery has been abolished in the modern world, a look at trafficking statistics shows that it's a much more severe problem than you'd think. Much like the US, Russia has a huge problem with modern-day slavery. To learn more about the situation there, watch this video. There's a link in the description if you want to see the full video.
Yes, that means 48 other countries have more slaves per capita than Russia. But it doesn't take away from Russia's enormous problem with forced labor.
Thanks for watching TestTube News. Please subscribe now.
Yes, it is common. So, Tina, what makes an individual more vulnerable?
Well, I'm going to be very honest with you. It is easy to manipulate kids. It's so easy to manipulate kids that they don't think they're being manipulated. We do it all the time. Remember the cleanup song?
Clean up, clean.
We manipulate them, right? And
yes.
So predators do the same thing. We want this like stigma, right? And say like, what are these signs exactly? The thing is this: there are grown women with money who are 90 years old, and gigolos come and get all of their money in cash. A vulnerability can be this: we had a survivor who went to college. She didn't start her trafficking situation till 19. She was recruited on college campus. And so this guy will come and he will go to college campuses, and he wore different, because it's a college campus you can walk on.
Yes.
He would wear different sweatshirts and stuff. And actually he recruited on high school. There was a big federal case about that, and he recruited on college campuses. So freshmen, right? You're away from home.
Right.
The freshman thing, it's the new, that's one. Another way one of our kids were trafficked, it can also be a female.
Okay.
So another girl in her class just was recruited by a trafficker, so inside the school. Then we have boys, high school boys, that recruited one of our girls who had special needs in a special school. And they also had an IEP, but their uncle was a pimp. So here's the thing about that. There are families of pimps where the kids are actually in the schools. So you will see a lot of trafficking inside the schools. So asking me, where's the vulnerability? Here's the problem. It is really, honestly, every single where that you can possibly think of already. Now, to think that kids don't know about trafficking is a ridiculous notion, because I'm in Highsville Middle, I'm in high school, I'm in colleges, I'm everywhere. And I tell you this, we're using the wrong words. So that word human trafficking, once again.
Right.
But if you ask a pimp, you know, what a pimp is, they listen to today's music, watch today's videos, they're going to tell you what a pimp is.
Absolutely.
Because it's glamorized. So I have girls saying they want to be with pimps and they want to have all this money and go around the world like in the videos. So it makes it easier. It is so easy to manipulate someone, and really it's great because pimps are the greatest marketers in the world. And I say that because they fooled all of you, they didn't exist. That's why. So of course they fool kids because they fool their parents.
They fooled all of us.
Yeah. And that's why the kids don't know, because the parents don't know. That's how good they are at marketing.
Marketing is a business.
They're marketing children. But here's the sadder part. Without demand, there'll be no supply.
Right.
So the men who buy sex, that's the bigger issue. Most are married. We do street outreach here in this area. I go on all the D.C., Maryland, Virginia, transgender tracks, everything. Most of the men are married. Know that. I was in life for a long time. They married. The harder issue for me was faith. So I had to take a walk back to faith because a lot of the men were also clergy. And so, and when we talk about trafficking, then we have to talk about all men, because this is what fuels it, men.
You see, I'm shocked, right?
Yeah.
Okay, of course, we see on television, there's some married men, but it's like, they make it seem like it's an anomaly. And then the clergy.
Right.
Okay, Tina. School us.
So here's the thing. Actually, religion plays a bigger role than you think. There are a lot of organizations out and a lot of faith-based organizations. So one of the things I always tell them is be really leery of your messages, right? Mm-hmm. So you should actually understand trafficking. So if we talk about the Latino population right now, we talk about gang control. The Latino population, MS-13, A Streets Los Locos, what happens on that end is this. So religion is always used. Mm-hmm. Candles are lit. And then, of course, and you actually have to have sex under, because what they believe is that you are doing God's work. Pimps do the same thing, though, you know? And so a lot of pimps and their family, including the one I had, his whole family, we went to church. And so that's one of the things, too, because we were told that we were born to be a hoe and that God wanted us to do this. The thing is, to embarrass you, they pick your clothes, what you wear. And I want you all to think about that when we judge people at church. Mm-hmm. When we say we're God's church and we're here to talk to people, do we really? Do we really talk to the people in the back who may look dirty, who may smell? Do we really do that? Because we're sitting in your face all the time, survivors of trafficking, hidden in plain sight right next to you. But we're never going to say anything. Mm-hmm. If you're judging us, if you're putting us down, if the words coming out your mouth, if you approach me and think I don't believe in God, right, then you might not get the truth. So it's just that so much of this relies on your mental. So I can't reach for help if I'm still mentally captive. How am I reaching for help? But we understood that when it was Elizabeth Smart, right? Mm-hmm. When Elizabeth Smart was taken and they had the trauma bond, we understood that, but we don't understand it when it's forced prostitution. I don't understand that.
Selective understanding.
It is.
Selective understanding. And there was something else you said. I'm going to jump back a little bit. But you said you were adopted.
Yes.
And your father is Caucasian.
Yes.
And in your mind, Caucasian men always have sex with children.
Yes.
But your father never touched her.
Never.
But that whole idea, I would have been petrified to be adopted if that's what you were thinking.
Well, I think it was a 2-tier, and I really need you all to understand that. So my 2-tier was, then I also thought white people had a bunch of money and they saved me too. Let's just, and I grew up by gang members who gave me a party, was like, hey, you got, a family. So maybe on that piece, but no, I was afraid. Like I was nervous, very nervous in the beginning. And I say that because a lot of our kids say that. One of our girls told me the other day she was scared to start her new school because she thought she may have an Asian teacher. So her family's originally from India. So when you see her that statement, most people, one of our interns actually was like, oh my God, it's a race issue. And I looked at her and I said, it's not a race issue. But when I went and talked to the baby and I said to her, okay, are you saying that because most of the men who bought sex from you were Asian? And she said, yes.
Got it.
So that's like the reality. You don't know how to explain that. So no, my dad taught me, like, I wasn't taught things that a lot of kids were at first, right? I didn't know you weren't supposed to walk around naked. I didn't know you didn't sit on grown man lap. And no, they taught me that. But that's important that I just said that, because if you were not raised like that and you were being sexually abused, you would not know not to sit on it. You just wouldn't know that. No one taught you boundaries.
No boundaries. Well, up next, The Great Escape. Is it even real? After these messages.
Are you or someone you know suffering from stress, anxiety, or depression? Have you experienced feelings of frustration due to lack of family and/or career support? Let's talk. Relationship issues got you down? Get the help you need. Contact Dr. Sheba Holly, mental health advisor and life coach, at clarity.fm/Dr. Sheba Holly. That's DrShebaHolly. If confidentiality, comfort, and convenience is important to you, guidance is provided on your terms. You deserve peace of mind. Contact Dr. Sheba Holly, mental health advisor and life coach, at clarity.fm/Dr. Sheba Holly. That's DrShebaHolly. Get answers now. Make your appointment today. Let's talk. Clarity.fm/Dr. Sheba Holly. That's DRSHEPAHOLLY.
And we're back on with Human Trafficking and Tita Frundt. Okay, The Great Escape. Is it real?
You know, The Great Escape is real, but not in the movie sense, right?
Okay.
Let's think about any time we wanted to change something in our lives. It did not take the one time, right?
Right.
I wish it did. You had to change your own mindset too. And like realize the chains that were already there on your mind.
Okay.
And that takes years. It takes years. So with my own situation, it took me 10 years. This is not an easy. I am about the last person on earth that would judge anybody. Because here's the thing of anytime you change your mindset. Let's start off with something most people understand. Everybody knows someone or has someone in their family that's addicted to drugs or alcohol.
Absolutely.
And when you were around that person and they were going to change for the 500th time, what they told you was, I am not going to drink hard liquor no more during the week. That's it. I'm not doing it. It's messed up. I'm only going to drink beer on the weekend. Now, when they say that, we're like, oh, that's it. What? But that's actually how it works on trafficking. See, you were taught a skill. So you run, right? And you're like, I don't want to do this. I'm not doing this. I don't ever want to pimp no more.
Right.
They're awful. They beat you. It's crazy. But you learned a skill. You don't love the sex. Who knows? You're not even physically there. It's addiction to the money.
Right.
Because it's quick money. That's all you know. Everybody gets attached to quick money. They just get attached in different ways. Selling drugs, selling something, you get attached. But the thing about quick money, so now you say, I want to do this on my own. Because you get to see $45,000 a week cross my hands tax-free. So you get to say, what if I cut the middleman out? I learned the skill. So here's the problem with that scenario. You all in the outside world think that's super easy. Everybody tells you they're doing it on their own.
Right.
Here's the thing. Who wants to be a victim?
No one.
So I'm always going to tell you that you give it away for free and I get paid when I don't keep no money because I don't want you to judge me.
Right.
So when you're working on certain places in the area, there are certain places and they're called tracks. And not every place is run by a pimp, but there are lots in the area that are. So that's very important because those are the places you were taken to, and that's where you get so much money from. So you try to go back to those same places. The thing is, it's called pimp control for a reason. So you can't just jump out on someone's track. That's like with selling drugs. You just can't sell drugs on somebody's track and that's okay. So what happens is that's when you actually do get kidnapped. So I've been traditionally kidnapped 5 times, but that happened when you were trying to do something on your own. So traditional kidnapping is when you are thrown in a car. I've been in the trunk of a car and I had to get out. Here's the thing. You didn't hear about my kidnapping because then I was labeled a prostitute. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so that's why that disconnect with trafficking is.
Okay. So that terminology was called being a renegade.
Yeah, the terminology is renegade, but you can't actually do it on your own. It's very difficult. Even if you're online, the traffickers call you, to try to recruit. So you may think your pimp is going to be mad, right? The pimp is mad at you. These are the rules they made. Why are they going to be mad at the other pimp? So this is actually the scariest crime is because they actually work together. This isn't like drugs. I can make $2 million sitting right next to you. You'll make $2 million too, because it's about men. Right. So there are lots of different men out there. So your money won't affect my money, and that's why it's scary.
Very scary. So on a more livelier note, let's talk about the unsung you, guys. She's being blessed in so many ways because she's blessing others with her knowledge and what she went through. She's helping others. So tell us.
So I'm very happy to announce that by the Urban League of Washington, I won the Unsung Heroes Award, the Community Leader Unsung Heroes. It's March 11th, and my girl Patty's going to be there. Woo! So I'm very excited about that. Also, former President Bill Clinton will also be at the awards. And for me, to be very honest with you, I really honestly didn't think I'd live past 30. When I make that statement, people look at me, but you all don't know that I really didn't think I was going to live past 30. Like, I planned my funeral and not my wedding since I was 7. So for me, every day that I live and every day that I breathe and the promises that I really did make for God is every day I try my best to live for him. I'm not perfect, but coming from that life and every day, I never thought I'd write my own curriculum and models and didn't go to college. I tell the kids that all the time. I never in my life thought any of these things would happen.
But they're happening.
But they are. And so for them to continue to happen, we have to continue the support at Courtney's house because all our services and everything that we do actually go right back into our kids. I'm very big about that.
Courtney's House, and that's www.courtneyshouse.org. COURTNEYSHOUSE.org.
Yes.
Courtney's House. Tina Frundt.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
I mean, you've done a wonderful job. Please reach out if you know someone. Talk about it. Say something. Don't look away. And just like Tina said, when you look in the back of the church in a pew and you see someone that doesn't look as clean, or you think they're not as holy because they're not dressed like you, think about what she just said. Pimps are all around us. A pimp could be in your house. In your house. Could you imagine? On your iPad.
That's right.
On that child's, what is that, cell phone. Because you know the kids have cell phones at 9.
On Kick, on Tag. See, Tagged and Kick are geared especially for kids. Who do you think is on those? Adults.
Unbelievable. Well, we're going to hear a lot more from Tina, so get ready, world. We're going to stop this.
Thank you.
We're going to help others. We're going to do this. So it's a wrap for us on this marvelous Monday. Thank you for coming out and joining us and being empowered.
Thank you.
And remember, love like you've never been hurt. Work like you don't need the money. Love like you've never been hurt. And dance like nobody's looking. We'll talk later.
Talks with Sheba. Be empowered.